similar to what was seen after the Memorial Day holiday in the United States, but this time with a far higher number of new daily cases. We are entering this post-Thanksgiving surge with 3, 4 and 10 times as much disease across the country, and so that's what worries us the most. We saw what happened post-Memorial Day, and now we are deeply worried about what could happen post-Thanksgiving, because the number of cases, 25,000 versus 180,000 a day, that's where and that's why we are deeply concerned. While top health officials continue to warn about the post-Thanksgiving COVID-19 surge in the weeks to come, the U.S. is already experiencing an unprecedented wave of the pandemic that has turned virtually the entire country into a hotspot. Last week, the U.S. passed a threshold once considered almost unimaginable, recording more than 200,000 cases in a single day. As regular routine begins again after the long holiday weekend, coronavirus experts are urging anyone who traveled to get tested or quarantined for 2 weeks, especially if they were around a lot of people. With the coronavirus pandemic raging across the country and cases going up, there are still underground parties, packed secret nightclubs, and more happenings across the country. President-elect Joe Biden spoke with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and his transition team said, discussing the need there for a strengthened partnership to combat COVID-19. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is warning Americans against all travel to Mexico as coronavirus cases continue to rise in that country. In the past 2 weeks, Mexico surpassed 100,000 deaths due to the virus and reported over 1 million cases since the beginning of the pandemic. The head of the World Health Organization has said that Mexico is in bad shape, and the coronavirus death tally, the fourth highest in the world, stands at almost 106,000 confirmed cases in excess of 1.1 million. The head of the world's largest humanitarian network is urging governments and institutions to combat fake news about COVID-19 vaccines, which has become a second pandemic, and start building trust in communities around the world about the critical importance of vaccinating people. Pfizer Inc. and BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine could be rolled out in Europe this month. The application there comes days after the companies applied for emergency use of their vaccine in the United States. President Joe Biden has seen a 6 percentage point jump in his favorability rating since the elections. He has expressed a clear sense of urgency in advancing climate goals as the U.S. president-elect discussed his decision to rejoin the historic Paris Agreement on his first day in office during a meeting on climate policy. He named key members of his economic team yesterday with the long-expected announcement of Janet Yellen as Treasury Secretary, along with 3 other women in top roles on a diverse team that will help him navigate the nation's punishing fiscal headwinds in hopes of building an economy recovery. President-elect Joe Biden is also considering former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel, a substantial and somewhat divisive figure in Democratic Party politics, to serve as his transportation secretary. Dr. Scott Atlas, a science advisor to President Trump who was skeptical of measures to control the coronavirus outbreak, is leaving his White House post. The White House officials confirming that the Stanford University neuroradiologist, who had no formal experience in public health or infectious diseases, resigned at the end of his temporary government assignments. 2 battleground states, Wisconsin and Arizona, certified their presidential election results in favor of Joe Biden, even as President Trump's legal team continued to dispute the results. Some establishment Republicans are sounding alarms that President Trump's conspirational denials of his own defeat could threaten the party's ability to win a Senate majority and counter President-elect Joe Biden's administration. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court today will hear a 2-pronged appeal of Bill Cosby's 2018 sexual assault conviction, with the disgraced entertainer's lawyers asking the justices to either grant him a new trial or drop the case. A record-setting Atlantic hurricane season that saw the highest number of named storms officially came to a close yesterday. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has said the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season set multiple records while producing a record 30 named storms. Saudi Arabia agreed to let Israeli airliners cross its airspace en route to the United Arab Emirates after talks between Saudi officials and White House senior advisor Jared Kushner. President Trump may only have 5 weeks left in office, but he's given his top advisors the green light to batter the Iranian regime, anything that doesn't hazard a full-on war before Joe Biden is inaugurated. The assassination of a top Iranian nuclear scientist was designed to derail President-elect Joe Biden's plans to return to the 2015 nuclear deal. The assassination of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, often referred to as the father of Iran's nuclear program, may have thrown a major wrench in Biden's plans. The Iranian nuclear scientist whose assassination the Islamic Republic has blamed on Israel was little known before his death, but one thing is certain: he was important. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed lauded his troops for ousting a northern movement, but the leader of the Tigrayan forces said they were still resisting amid fears of a protracted guerrilla conflict. The head of local forces in Ethiopia's northern region says they are still fighting near the regional capital of Mekelle, which was seized by government troops over the weekend. NATO must not jeopardize the peace negotiations for Afghanistan by withdrawing troops prematurely from the war-torn country, according to Germany's foreign minister. More than 180 police officers raided homes in 3 German states early this morning after the German government banned a far-right group. And the head of the European Union's Border and Coast Guard Agency faces a grilling today by European Union lawmakers as pressure mounts of allegations that Frontex was involved in illegal pushbacks aimed at preventing migrants or refugees entering Europe through the Greek islands. 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton has tested positive for COVID-19 and will miss the Sakir Grand Prix this weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Radio Caravan. Indonesian authorities are closely monitoring several volcanoes after sensors picked up increased activity in recent weeks, prompting the evacuation of thousands of people. Hot ash tumbled as far as 3,000 meters down the slopes of Mount Semeru early this morning, triggering panic among villagers. And petrol bombs were hurled at a Hong Kong police recreation club in the early hours of this morning, a rare attack on a police facility since Beijing imposed a sweeping national security law. And China has underreported COVID-19 numbers by more than half as it downplayed the severity of the virus and their failure to quickly diagnose cases in the early stages of the pandemic. And today, the 1st of December, marks exactly 1 year since the first case of coronavirus was reported in Wuhan. As India and China prepare for the 9th round of military dialogue to restore status quo ante in East Ladakh sector, New Delhi is waiting for certain clarifications on the disengagement and de-escalation roadmap from Beijing. According to people familiar with this matter, it appears that Chinese soldiers are not being able to withstand the harsh winters of the eastern Ladakh sector as they are being rotated on a daily basis at the forward positions, whereas Indian troops are staying for longer periods at the same locations. A group of Australian scientists have mapped around 3 million galaxies in just 300 hours to create a new atlas of the universe. The Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation said today that its new telescope conducted its first survey of the entire southern sky in record speed and detail. Sydney has reported its hottest November night on record, with the official start of summer still days away. And the losses to Australia in the first 2 ODIs in Sydney brought back some painful memories for Indian cricket fans. Indian captain Virat Kohli, though, will be on the verge of achieving a huge milestone when he steps out to bat in the 3rd ODI against Australia tomorrow in Canberra. The Indian team has already lost the series with the Aaron Finch-led Australia, taking an unassailable 2-0 lead in the 3-match ODI series. Kohli is just 23 runs away from reaching the 12,000 ODI run mark, and if he manages to do so tomorrow, he would reach the mark in his 251st ODI and 242nd innings. The Department of the University of Cambridge by Indian scientist Yusuf Hamid, the chairman of the pharma major CIPLA study, has been named the Yusuf Hamid Department of Chemistry until the year 2050. And Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that Ottawa has conveyed its concerns about the protests by Indian farmers to New Delhi, but the External Affairs Ministry dismissed his remarks as unwarranted as they pertain to the country's internal affairs. The ongoing farmers' agitation against the centre's new farm reform laws has entered its 6th day today, and the Farmers' Union accepted the centre's offer to hold talks as protesters continued their agitation at Delhi border points against the new farm laws. India recorded 12.8 lakh new COVID-19 cases last month, the lowest count in 4 months, and the caseload rose to 94.62 lakhs, with over 31,100 new infections being reported in a day. Actor Urmila Matondkar joined the Shiv Sena in presence of party president and Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray. And Delhi, meanwhile, recorded its coldest November this year since 1949. The Indian Meteorological Department has sounded another cyclone alert for Tamil Nadu, which was slammed by Cyclone Nivar last week, and Kerala. Dhamapur Lake, one of the biggest lakes in the Sindhudurg district in Maharashtra, is one of the 4 Indian historical structures selected from India to receive the World Heritage Irrigation Structure Award for 2020. Parliamentary Secretary for Foreign Affairs has represented Pakistan in the 19th meeting of the Council of Heads of Government of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, hosted by India via video conference yesterday. And Prime Minister Imran Khan ordered setting up of a special division under the supervision of an additional secretary from the Interior Ministry to make the border management system more effective. The fifth power show of the Pakistan Democratic Movement was held yesterday at Multan's Ghanta Ghar Chowk after days of conflict between the city administration and opposition workers over holding a public event at a time when the incidence of coronavirus is rising. And the second wave of the virus continues to gain momentum in the country. And more than 3,000 cases were recorded for the third consecutive day, with the highest rate of positive cases reported in Peshawar. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all that I have in the news.